Hello and welcome to the Berkowitz and Hannah podcast. My name is Monty Rossetti. This podcast will be a series of conversations with legal experts in the fields of medical malpractice and personal injury law who have earned a reputation as being one of the leading firms in Connecticut. On the first episode, we have the privilege of speaking to attorney Russ Berkowitz, managing partner of Berkowitz and Hannah, an award-winning medical malpractice and personal injury firm. Russ and I will chat about the history of his firm, the nature of his practice, and the firm's mission statement on behalf of its medical malpractice clients. All right, I'm here with attorney Russ Berkowitz. Russ, thank you for being on our first episode here. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Monty. Nice to see you.
How about you introduce yourself and give us a little insight on why you got involved in law and what drew you to medical malpractice and personal injury law?
That's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to do the short version of it. I'm currently the senior partner of Berkowitz and Hannah, malpractice and injury lawyers. We are based in Shelton, Connecticut. We have 4 other offices. We have an office in Stamford, Connecticut, an office in Bridgeport, an office in Danbury, an office in New Haven. So we have 5 offices. 2 offices are staffed. The others are our regional satellite offices because we have malpractice and personal injury cases throughout the state. They're strategically located in different parts of the state for convenience purposes for clients to come to us.
And give us a history of the firm. When was it founded? How did it start? And any milestones you'd like to highlight?
Well, the history of the firm is we started the firm in 1997. I was a junior partner of another firm in Stamford, Connecticut. I broke off from the firm in 1997, took with me a few attorneys and paralegals at that time. And from that, the firm started to flourish, where we were back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. We were more of a personal injury firm and less of a malpractice firm. But the malpractice area was really an area for me personally that I desired to build and spend my career doing. And I was able to build that into the practice fairly quickly in terms of a flourishing, large, significant medical malpractice portion of the firm.
Now, your firm has a lot of history, as you just mentioned. What's the overarching philosophy behind the firm?
The philosophy that I actually established, since I'm the founder of the firm, was that I never wanted to be too big where clients were just a number. They didn't know us and we didn't know them. And I never wanted them to feel that it was all about the money. That's the only reason why we were their lawyer. And I think that what I always have stressed to the other members of the firm is that we strive to serve as a voice for clients that don't have the ability to speak for themselves. And one of the things that you probably should know about our firm is that we limit our practice to catastrophic cases, whether it be a catastrophic malpractice case or a catastrophic personal injury matter. We represent either families of someone who has passed away, someone who is significantly catastrophically injured, whether it be in an accident or malpractice, or what I tend to have a subspecialty is our birth injury cases, children that are born as a result of malpractice with either a cerebral palsy or something called Erb's palsy, and it's that's the overarching area that we seem to focus on.
And is there a standard by which you judge who has a good case, and what are some of the qualities of a good case?
Well, I think that different firms have different standards. Fortunately, we've been a fairly successful firm in Connecticut of what we do. We have without putting a dollar number on it, we have a certain threshold in the office of the size of a case that we would be interested. But in terms of other than the size of the case, everything else is the same, whether it's a smaller or a larger case. The workup is the same. You still have to be able to prove in Connecticut the same thing, no matter whether it's a $10 million case or whether it's a $250,000 case, which is what I said earlier, that was the doctor negligent? Did they depart from the standard of care? And did that departure cause the injury that the patient is complaining about?
So the firm is well known in Connecticut for its tenacity, integrity, and experience, as well as its history of successful case results. I like to break down each of these characteristics and get a specific example that exemplifies it. So let's start off with tenacity. What does tenacity mean in a law setting, and how does your firm exemplify it?
I think tenacity is a general term, and I think that if you want to compare it to, for instance, sports, a tenacious team is usually an aggressive team. We're obviously not physically aggressive. However, tenacity means, as it relates to our firm, and speak for other firms, but our firm, that we do what needs to be done within the bounds of ethical constraints in obtaining the best result that we can do for the client. And tenacity can mean, are we aggressively pursuing the case in a timely fashion? Are we leaving no stone unturned in doing the medical research to make sure that we are on the cutting edge of medicine as it relates to whether or not the standard of care has been violated based upon our research? Do we go out and find the best experts in the country to support our case? And finally, while we pride ourselves on being professional as it relates to the opponents that represent the hospitals, the doctors, and the insurance companies, they know that we're not a pushover. They don't file motions and think that we're just going to roll over and go away. We're in it for the long haul. Our goal is every case gets worked up as if it's going to go to a trial. 95% of all cases ultimately settle in our office. I think the reason being that because we are tenacious and we're prepared, and all the lawyers in our firm are excellent lawyers, and the cases that we select are excellent cases, I think that all goes into the ability to have that tenacity that we have and the confidence in knowing that we're on the right side of the case. And it's very, and for me, it's very important for the clients to feel that they're being heard. And I think that when they come to us, that's what they want. I know that the only available remedy in Connecticut for medical malpractice cases is money. But I think a lot of our clients, one, they want to be heard. Two, they want to make sure that this doesn't happen again to somebody else. They like hearing that sometimes the cases that we end up handling, we ultimately effectuate change at a hospital or a healthcare facility where their policies and procedures have been changed based on the outcome of their case. And of course, there are a lot of reasons why compensation is needed. You represent a child who's been born with cerebral palsy, and in those cases, they need lifetime care. And parents aren't going to be around forever, and parents worry about who's going to take care of our kid if something happens to them. And so, we have a multi-pronged goal as it relates to this case. So the tenacity you're talking about is all to lead to that point that we're doing something in the best interest of the clients and hopefully for the profession.
Now, for the next characteristic, integrity. So, this seems like an important one, as many injury and malpractice lawyers have a reputation for being less than above board. How does your firm deal with being, high in integrity?
We just try to do things the right way. I mean, we have ethical canons in Connecticut and also throughout the country that we have to adhere to. And at least when I started this firm and I hired people who have now been here a long time, everybody knows that we do things the right way here. Everybody on the other side of the cases know that we're not an underhanded firm. We don't hide things. We don't cheat. I mean, you can be aggressive, but fight fair. And I think that's the philosophy of this firm.
You mentioned earlier about your experience. Why does experience matter in your business?
Experience matters in our business because you have to learn through hard knocks and failures to become successful. Nobody ever just walks into this business and is a superstar right out of the box. I mean, everybody has to start at some place where they're less experienced. They don't have the contacts to get experts. They're not as familiar with the medicine. They haven't had a big verdict or a big settlement that has given them that confidence in knowing that they can be successful. And also experience it. You telegraph that to the other side that you're working against, the lawyers that work for the hospitals and the doctors. They're not quite as they're more confident against a younger, less experienced attorney than they are with someone who's done this for a long time and has had a lot of success. I mean, I could speak for our firm. I don't think there's another firm in the state of Connecticut that has more verdicts or settlements over $1 million. I mean, you have that kind of track record. They know that we know what we're doing. They know that we can work up a case. They know that we're not afraid to try a case. I don't think that someone with less experience who doesn't have that track record can command that kind of respect for the other side. And also, you develop relationships in this business over time. I have relationships with a number of the risk managers at the hospitals throughout Connecticut, the senior partners or the attorneys that we deal with, because it's a niche business. There's only so many of us that do this kind of work in Connecticut. So you get to know who the top attorneys are. And obviously, combining that with the ethics, you're never going to get anywhere in this business if your word isn't your bond. It's just not going to be that way. I've resolved 7- and 8-figure cases on a handshake or an oral settlement versus putting things in writing, because there's a respect that goes back and forth between the attorneys and also the institutions.
Now, what are some of the more rewarding aspects of your job?
It's just a meaningful job to help somebody. We have so many people that come into our office and their life has been shattered. There's nothing worse than a couple who couldn't wait for 9 months to have a baby. They're so excited about it. And to have that all fall apart in a span of 5 minutes during a delivery, where they find out that their child has a profound brain damage, it's going to change their lives forever and change the child's life forever. To be able to take this family and become their counselor, not just as their spokesperson on a case, their friend, their spiritual guider, their financial planner, their support system. And it's very rewarding to go through the process with them, have a successful result, make sure that their child is taken care of forever. And it's just a meaningful way to practice law.
Now, is there a particular case that sticks with you after all these years?
I think I can go back to one of my first cases that was one of our larger, was a settlement. It didn't go to trial. It was a couple that where the mom was pregnant with twins, and sadly, because of I think the hypothetical I gave you earlier, where if a child isn't delivered in a timely fashion, they can be born with a brain injury because of lack of oxygen. In that case, one of the babies died, and the other one was born with cerebral palsy. And the family and the couple was devastated, as they should be. And I obviously didn't know as much as I know today, but what I learned in that case was through hard work and doing my best in getting up to speed on the medicine, and the fact that they trusted this young guy who was in his late 20s at the time to handle that size of a case, which ultimately turned out to be an extremely large case. It was very rewarding to do the kind of job for them that I ultimately did. And I never forgot that case because it was my first large case.
Well, that's a great way to get your career started. So there are many personal injury and medical malpractice law firms. Why choose Berkowitz and Hanna?
I think if you go to our website, you'll see the track record that we have. You see the credentials of the lawyers that work at this firm, and I think you can't not be impressed with what we've accomplished and the kind of people that work here. I mean, I know that in this day and age, it's very important to get reviews for whatever reason. Law firms, any business is always seeking reviews. And we have tons of reviews out there. And I think that it's meaningful for us because those reviews are consistent with who we are. And I think that it just separates us mean, numbers mean something. I mean, success means something. There are other firms that are successful. I think one of the things that separates us in terms of that, and I know all the other top firms, everyone has a philosophical difference in how they approach new clients. One of the things that I'm particularly proud of is the fact that every single person that contacts this office, who ultimately hires us, they speak with a lawyer first. They speak with me most of the time. One of my roles is we have an intake team here. We get contacted, believe it or not, by 25 to 35 potential med mal cases per week. And we have a whole team that screens them. But once it gets beyond the screening point that there might be a case, they have a Zoom meeting with me, or they come into the office, or they speak with one of my partners. I can't say that's how it works with every firm that does this kind of work. And I think that me getting to know the clients and them getting to know them at the beginning, it makes a huge difference in their ability to trust us as we maneuver them through this process, which sometimes can be a long process. Some of the cases are more complicated than others. Some of the law firms we deal with on the other side are more difficult to deal with than other law firms. And so I think that this trust and the relationships that we built with the clients, I think makes a huge difference, along, as I said, with the results that we've ultimately received, where clients really are satisfied with us when the case is over with.
Now, just a couple of questions before we sign off here. What's the most important advice you give your clients?
The most important advice I give my clients as relates to my cases is that you have to trust us. I know that your first meeting, you're just meeting us, but you have to trust that we know what we're doing, because that's why you came to us to begin with, because you did your due diligence and you looked for a lawyer that you believe can get you the result that you want. But now that you've done that, let us do our job. I tell people all the time, if you're an architect, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. Obviously, and if you're a lawyer, let us do our job. However, we're not one of these firms that doesn't listen to clients. We try to be interactive. It's a partnership, and clients have their own feelings. Sometimes we direct them in a way that they didn't think of, because this is what we do for a living. But the advice is to clients is, especially, for instance, if they have a child that needs a lot of care, I tell them, what I want you to do is to make sure that your child gets the best possible care that they can get. And you let us do the fighting for you in the case. And the same thing with families we represent that come to us from all over the country that had lost a loved one. They happen to have here in Connecticut. And I tell them, you don't need to micromanage the case. You can trust, you're going to have to trust that we know what we're doing, and we're always available to talk with you. I give every single client my cell number. They know they can text me whenever they want, or whenever they want to call me once they're a client of the office, so that there's this contact that we have. But at the same time, I try to impress upon the clients that this is serious stuff here. You're suing an institution that has millions, sometimes billions of dollars. They get the best lawyers on the other side, and let us fight for you, because, you're either going through a grieving process, you're raising a child that has, a life-threatening disease. And I tell them how much I respect the fact that they're going through such a challenge. So our partnership with them is, let us do the legal work that we were trained to do and what we've been successful with. And you guys take care of your family.
Now, my final question, where do you see the future of your firm heading?
I think that the firm is heading in the same direction that we've been headed in the past, but we seem to, because of our reputation and because of the results that we've gotten over the years, we seem to be getting more and more contacts, more referrals from other lawyers. And so I think that we just plan on continuing on the path that we're going, and we try to do the best job for each individual client. I mean, the work has always been important to me and the others here, where we look at every case separately and every client separately. And like I said earlier, it's meaningful work. And when And I think the clients would suspect if you didn't think that they were important. I mean, and even though the size of the case that we have are large, they're large to different degrees. It doesn't mean that the person that has a $10 million case, is more meaningful to us than a client that has $1 million case, or a $750,000 case. Every client is treated the same here. And so, and this is why we do what we do. So in terms of what do I see as the future is the same as it is now. Obviously, technology changes in how we work up the cases because to be successful, you have to change with the times. AI is starting to become a big deal as being a supportive role. We're right on the cutting edge of that if it's necessary. It's not as necessary in certain aspects of the job that we have, but in other respects, it allows us to be more efficient here. So from that standpoint, the path will be a little different from a technological standpoint, but it never will change that the person that comes into the office and just tells you a heartbreaking story about either a loved one or a child, and that always will get to us, and that's the motivating factor for why we continue to do what we do.
Attorney Russ Berkowitz, thank you so much for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Monty.